Good morning, guys. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there with you guys today, but I'm very sick. So I wanted to go ahead and do my lesson the best way that I know how. Today, your learning goal is to learn the difference between biotic and abiotic factors. Biotic factors and abiotic factors, it's not too hard, but we're going to go over it quickly. Um, we're starting our unit on ecosystems, and an ecosystem is a community of living and non-living things. And what you need to know is the difference between a biotic factor, which is a living thing. It could also be something that was once living that is no longer living and has decomposed. But those are things like animals, plants, people, bacteria, things that require the necessities of life, such as food, water, sunlight, air, shelter, space, those things that we've talked about before. I don't know how many of you remember learning about Mrs. Grin. That was something I taught my seventh graders. Those things that every living organism must have or must do in order to be considered living. Must be able to reproduce. So we start with Mrs. They must have movement. R is the R is for respiration. S is for sensitivity to stimuli. G is for growth. It must be able to grow. Um, the other R is, if I didn't say respiration first, is reproduce. Must be able to reproduce. Um, yeah, we'll go back over it whenever I get back. I just had a brain fog. Still not feeling well. It's not fun, guys. And anyway, um, we'll talk more about it when I get back, but I just wanted to go ahead and open it up for you. Ecosystem, living and non-living things in one particular place. Community is all the population within that place. It could be different types of species within that community. Think about your own community that you live in, your neighborhood. You've got all different types of organisms that live there. You got humans, you probably have some birds, some snakes, some insects. All of those things live within that community. Then you've got populations. You got populations all of a single species in the same place. You could have a species of rabbits in your community. You could have a species of trees, all of those things. This is an anchor chart that you do need to know. Remember, I said everything on an anchor chart is it's the meat, no fluff, right? So abiotic factors are those non-living. A means without or non. Those are things like rocks, dirt, water, sunlight, air. So those are things that you need to know as far as examples for biotic and abiotic. And I would make sure that I get this in my notebook, and I will tell you what page to write it on when we get there. Day one, which is going to be the 5th. We'll probably start out with a vocabulary assignment. As always, I'll get you to get your words in your notebook, and then you'll see this again. So don't sweat it right this second, but make sure you know the difference between a biotic, which is a living organism, and a abiotic, which is a non-living organism. Okay? All right, we've got a few videos that I want to watch together, and we are going to do it together, so I make sure that you have it done. Don't stop, follow through.
Math and science. In this video, I'd like to talk about the difference between biotic and abiotic factors in an ecosystem. Let's start with biotic factors. Biotic factors in ecosystems are items that are considered alive, such as this animal or large tree, or as small as the single-cell euglena or bacteria. In order to be considered biotic, it must have these 6 traits. The organism must be able to grow and develop, be made of cells, respond to stimuli, require energy, be able to reproduce, and finally, contain DNA. Abiotic factors are non-living factors in environment. Examples include fire, water, air, ice, sunlight, temperature, and rocks and minerals. In fact, an ecosystem is this interaction between the abiotic and biotic factors in a particular area. Let's take a look at some ecosystems and identify the biotic and abiotic factors. In this ecosystem, the biotic factors are the fish, the trees, and plants. The abiotic factors would include sunlight, sand, clouds, and the water. In this ecosystem, the biotic factors include the human, the trees and plants, and the lichen growing on the rocks. The abiotic factors would include, but not limited to, the rocks, clouds, temperature, and sunlight. So there we go, biotic and abiotic factors, the living and non-living factors in an ecosystem. Thanks for watching. Moo Math uploads a new math and science video every day. If this helped, please share with a friend.
Okay, we got one more to do, and that's it, and then I will let you go and get started on your vocabulary. I think that's what I'm assigning for tomorrow. It may change. Always check Canvas, modules, today's date, and go from there. Okay, guys?
In science, in this video, I'd like to talk about
We're going to talk about limiting factors real quick because you need to know that too. But I want to go ahead and introduce that so that when you're doing your vocabulary, it makes a little more sense.
Factors. Any abiotic factor or biotic factor that restricts the number or reproduction of organisms in an ecosystem is called a limiting factor. Take this ecosystem found in the fish bowl. The limiting factors could be the size of the bowl, the amount of water, or the temperature, and any of these can limit the number of fish that can survive in the fish bowl. Limiting factors can be dependent limiting factors and independent limiting factors. Dependent limiting factors depend on the number of organisms. For example, the amount of food available for each organism depends on the number of organisms in this ecosystem. And independent limiting factors does not depend on the number of organisms. For example, the amount of rainfall does not depend on the number of organisms. You also have density-dependent limiting factors, and it is a limiting factor that depends on population size. For example, these could include competition, predation, parasitism, and disease. Let's look at a list of abiotic limiting factors. This could include sunlight, climate, temperature, water, space, soil chemistry, fire, and natural disasters. And a list of biotic limiting factors include the number of plants, number of animals, amount of competition, number of decomposers, number of parasites, and disease-causing agents. So there we go, limiting factors, biotic and abiotic factors that limit the size, number, and reproduction of organisms in an ecosystem. Thanks for watching, and Moo Math uploads a new math and science video every day.
Okay, that's it in a nutshell. The difference between abiotic and biotic factors is what? Biotic factors are living things, or once were living things, and abiotic is non-living things. We're not living, never were. Make sure that whenever you get your notes to do, whatever day it is this week, it will be on Canvas, that you make sure that you have the examples that I gave you in this lecture video and in these videos down. Okay, also the anchor chart will be somewhere in your assignment for this week. I hope to be back as soon as possible, but I am in all kinds of bad way right now, and I hope to be feeling better by next week. All right, so sorry I wasn't there to wish you guys back, but you guys know I love you. Please be on your best behavior. Thank you.